All right, everyone, coronavirus might be burning through the United States like a wildfire at the moment, but Trump actually has one reason to be quite happy at the moment, which is that his approval rating for the first time in his presidency, as of yesterday, he hit his all-time high. Now it's above 47. Now, 47 is very important. 47 is the universally agreed upon, I happen to be the one differentiation from this, magic number at which Trump gets reelected. That is it, the 47% approval rate. This is based on Obama lore. People thought that he couldn't be reelected because he was only at around 47% approval. But if your opponent is reasonably weak, and trust me, Trump's opponent will be weaker, you can get reelected with that. Obama, of course, did, crushing Mitt Romney in the Electoral College. I suspect that Trump silently cheered, very silently because he doesn't want to look anything other than very solemn and grave at a moment of considerable national crisis. He's surpassed the magic number. This shows that he doesn't have a ceiling so low that he can't achieve that. Now, of course, I think he could get elected at 45, specifically because there's a schism within the Democratic Party. It's grown since 2016. That's number one. So you have a large core of voters that I think will be very alienated. The Bernie bandwagon has fallen apart. If Bernie Sanders were the nominee, I would expect them to lose by an even larger margin because of the unpopularity of socialism among most of the independent voters. And the independent voters, a lot of it is the solid middle class that are nonpartisan because they're used to getting fucked chocolate style by both political parties. But anyway, I think he could get reelected that. But if he's above 47, the further he is above that at any time, the more than 50-50 shot just in simple numerics he would have at being reelected. He's already started to overtake variously both Biden and Sanders in some polling state by state. Like he's been ahead in a few polls in Florida. If you look how poorly Sanders performed there, I would pretty much write off the possibility of him winning that state at this point, parts of the Rust Belt. Going into the further Democratic primaries as well, right now we're almost on a political pause in the country. Trump's riding high for two reasons. He's responding well to a national crisis, which normally having this kind of national crisis, including the economic component, would be bad for the president. He's actually managed to rise almost 3 points in approval based almost entirely on his coronavirus response. Unless this thing drags on for months and months and months and continues to have a significant economic impact, I don't think that it hurts him. I think it actually ends up helping him long term. If this pandemic manages to begin petering out before the November election, Trump has basically already won it. Overcomes national tragedy, national crisis, national emergency, whatever. I don't happen to agree with the concept of closing things up and then stimulating the economy. I happen to generally oppose the authoritarian power grab side of that bill, among other things that are being done, but it will be perceived of as largely good. And keep in mind, in order to have such a thing be a win, he doesn't need 70-80% of the population to support what he's doing. He only needs about half the population to like it, because it's still above his approval level. The idea that his opponents, I think, are capable of hitting 47 themselves, I think is laughable. I don't think that Bernie Sanders could find 47% of the country to support him. My keyboard's trying to play with my computer here. I'll have to distract you by petting your cute fuzzy little head. And Biden, a little bit better. But again, he's got the charisma of a fucking dish rag. When he's at the debates, he's going to get crushed. This, by the way, the pundits, you notice they're not really talking about his approval level right now. Now, if it were to have collapsed down to 40, they'd be saying, well, the Trump presidency is done for this time. He's not going to get reelected. Ha, ha, ha. Orange Drumpfler bad. We're going to drag him out of the White House on his last day and throw him in cuffs. They'd be laughing about it. They're not really laughing at the moment. They're very, very upset. That's why they're pretending to support his coronavirus response a little more. I think it's beginning to dawn on some of Trump's political adversaries that his dumb man shtick, that his unhinged rant shtick, is really just an act, and behind the scenes he's extremely strategic with everything he does and says. It really is just 3D chess, or 4D chess, or 10th dimensional checkers or something. And then they're playing Go Fish. And that's really the problem for them. The Democratic field has not put forth its best and brightest. Well, technically it has. That's the problem. They don't really have any. The lack of talent among the people running in the Democratic Party. And the viciousness with which at times they attacked each other has basically precluded the kind of larger coalition that they're going to need to win anyway. Bernie Sanders pisses off the independents and the center left. He pisses off the business Dems, which already are primed to vote for Trump for economic purposes. And by the way, I think something else. I think the American voters are intelligent enough to trust Trump more than Biden or Bernie Sanders, certainly the latter, probably the former, during a time of economic crisis anyway. You can't blame Trump for a pandemic springing up in China. So absent him having any fault for it, other than his response being weighed as either largely good or largely bad, and time will tell, I happen to have reasonable faith in his own expectations that he'll do fairly well. The economic component's not his fault, and so he's not getting any blame for it, despite the erasing of hundreds of billions of dollars of funny money wealth off of the stock market, and record job unemployment claims since 1983 or something like that. By the way, even then our unemployment rate is reasonably low. Even after the considerable monthly spike in jobless claims, even if that were to happen for the next few months, unemployment rate would still be lower than it was when Trump took office. That's the remarkable thing. It also gives a little bit of a view of how strong the Trump economy has been. You can have this kind of enormous downturn, the total lockdown of the U.S. economy, and it still doesn't manage to burn off the progress that's been made over a few short years. Now, the Great Recession, it didn't take very long for that to erase the gains, now did it? A couple months later, you're like, well, shit. There goes the 401k, and my bank closed. Took all my money with it. It's funny how banks can do that, and the little guy always gets screwed. It's good, I think, that the stimulus contains a component for individuals and for small businesses. I hate the fact that it is a corporate bailout of sorts, not that there's any economic choice, but I think we're being sold a little bit of a pig in a poke. At least the digital wallet part got stripped out. By the way, has the House even put it forth yet? I don't even know its status sometimes. I don't even know what's happening with the stimulus. Am I going to get my Trump bucks? Because I'd like to buy, I don't know, another gun or a bunch of silver or something that's actually useful. So yeah, I might as well use the funny money for something since the currency is going to get devaluated by the stimulus. So but might as well spend it quick because it's not going to be worth jack shit tomorrow. Not that the monopoly currency is. By the way, showing the weakness and strengths of crypto. The government wants to centralize it. They must believe in it somehow. But at the same time, it's instead of going up when the economy started to shudder, like you would expect from a decent hedge like gold or something, it decides to fall. By the way, silver fell too. Silver prices collapsed. You can't even fucking find a place to buy it. Try using one of the bullion sites right now. Half the stuff is sold out. And all of the good stuff. The sort of stuff. The little ones that look like pirate coins and stuff like that. I mean, they are kind of fun. I prefer, Sunshine Mint. They've got a few procedures to try to make sure that you can prove that the silver is actually silver and reasonably reliable. By the way, not financial advice, disclaimer there. Not an economics expert or anything. But yeah, 47% approval, and risings too. We could get more polls. He could be at 48, 49. Maybe he hits 50. If he gets above 50, the election's basically over. But the biggest thing that this proves is that his ceiling is capable of going high enough for him to hit the number that everyone simultaneously agrees he needs to be reelected. Do I expect his approval to regress backwards a little bit? Yes, actually I do. I expect it to go back down, but I don't expect it to ever hit the lows that he was at before. If you look at the trend line, it's an entirely positive movement for him for months now. I expect him to stabilize above 45, possibly 46. Then by the election, if everything goes reasonably well, that is, the economy stabilizes, we bottom out, we start to rise a bit, the pandemic response goes reasonably well, he gets weighed against a weak opponent, he's above 47, maybe 48 on election day, he will be reelected by a considerable margin. And I mean by a larger margin than before. He will probably win the popular vote, and probably flip an extra few states. I'd favor him to grab up Virginia at this point. I'd favor him to grab up New Hampshire, possibly even Maine. I think New England is becoming more red. If you look at the vote in Vermont during the primaries, with a fairly large sample size, the drop in Sanders' support over the course of the election. 2016, he got 80-something%. He got 51% this last time. He only really had two viable opponents by Super Tuesday anyway. Keep that in mind. It's not a packed field, and yet he ends up losing an enormous proportion of his support. And I tried to tell people for days before, look, Vermonters are a breed of their own. Northern New Englanders just tend to vote for the incumbent. That doesn't mean that they want Sanders as president. He's the incumbent senator. He's not an incumbent president. New Englanders tend to do that. It's just the way that we function. We're a little bit stubborn that way. Once someone's in office, unless they really screw up, like Peter Shumlin did, we tend not to kick them out. We just re-elect them because better the devil that you know. That's about all. Peace out.